Folks, I don't know what's going on as far as Fox News is concerned and their ratings, but if Tucker Carlson is any indication of how far down Fox News has fallen, that network is in some serious trouble because Tucker Carlson is an idiot. If you don't know the history of Tucker Carlson, this guy has had 4 shows on either network TV or cable TV, and he has failed miserably all 4 times. So how he gets a primetime spot on Fox is beyond me. But I guess that just goes to show the lack of talent that is available to them to sprout the falsities that they love to sprout. Now, I want to play this particular clip from his show, and he had a New York councilman, Jumaane Williams, on regarding Maxine Waters and her going after Ben Carson. Now, Mr. Williams may not be the most articulate person in the world, but as far as his stick-to-itiveness, he's from New York, so he's not taking a backseat pretty much to Mr. Carlson. But I want to point out to you the ridiculous statement that Mr. Carlson makes regarding Maxine Waters, i.e. going after Ben Carson. Here's the clip.
Maxine Waters has struck again. The California Congresswoman has become a celebrity on the left lately for a willingness to say bizarre things that seem at times untethered from reality. She has a particular dislike, apparently, for HUD Secretary Ben Carson, weirdly. A month ago, she vowed to, paraphrasing here, take apart his rear end. Now she's vowing further harassment. Watch this.
Ben Carson, that I did to you, wait till Ben Carson.
Now, dumbass Mr. Carlson, how is it harassment when a secretary of HUD comes before your committee and you ask him questions? That is not harassment. But of course, that's what you want to label it when a person that you don't like pressures a person that I guess you agree with in any way, shape, manner, or form. I guess you consider that harassment when legitimate questions are asked. Anyway, let's continue.
So what exactly about Ben Carson makes Maxine Waters so mad? Is it HUD policies, or is it something else? Jumaane Williams is a New York City councilman, and he joins us tonight. Councilman, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you've ever talked to Ben Carson. You probably don't agree with some of the things he says, but he couldn't be a nicer man, a more gentle person. You saw him during the debates. I mean, it's very hard to think of anyone being mad at Ben Carson, and yet Maxine Waters really is focused on him. What do you think that's about?
Well, one, in a case like this, for me, it was a case of don't learn who your heroes are, because Ben Carson was a hero of mine when I was younger. I know I speak for a lot of young black men who are disappointed to see where he is and his real ideology and policy. I wrote an op-ed that said that this man actually shouldn't be the head of HUD, and I believe he was only put there because he had some melanin in his skin. But I think the bigger issue around Trump...
Wait a second. Hold on a second. That's an awful thing to say about somebody. Do you have any evidence for that?
There, for me, seemed no other reason to a man who was clearly unqualified, had no experience in housing at all whatsoever, and when you have the words urban in it, to put someone with some melanin in their skin, that was reason enough for me. I know you can disagree. The other issue...
No, it's not that I'm disagreeing, it's just that I'm challenging him because you're attacking his qualifications. You're calling him an affirmative action hire.
That is a...
And that's exactly what he was. For whatever reason, Donald Trump decided he needed a black person in his cabinet. Ben Carson had absolutely, unequivocally, no experience in housing. Everybody thought that if Trump was going to appoint Ben Carson to a position in his cabinet, it would have been Health and Human Services, since he was a doctor. But that didn't happen. And Ben Carson himself said that he was unqualified for that position, even though he did have a medical background. So what made Ben Carson qualified for housing and urban development, since he had no background whatsoever in housing? As far as I'm concerned, it's a rational argument, but unfortunately, Mr. Carlson doesn't feel that way.
His qualifications is clear that he had no qualifications for HUD.
No, but hold on. Oh, wait, slow down. Jack Kemp was HUD secretary. He had no background in housing. He was a fine housing secretary, but he was white, so you wouldn't have attacked him the way you're attacking Ben.
No,
I guess what bothers me is you're attacking this man on the basis...
Wait a minute. Exactly. Who would have attacked Jack Kemp, who, and he's right, he was an excellent housing secretary, but he learned on the job. But we're conflating. We're not talking about Jack Kemp. We're talking about Ben Carson.
This race,
because Ben Carson has also said that he doesn't agree with everything that HUD is actually supposed to do. And so with that and his background, he is wholly unqualified to be HUD and urban development.
So you have to...
And Mr. Williams is exactly right. Ben Carson is on record as stating that he is opposed to the HUD mandate as far as housing is concerned. So, number one, he has no qualifications, no background in housing whatsoever. And two, knowing what HUD's mandate was, he said he was completely opposed to it. And let me add a third one in there. As far as the budget is concerned, Mr. Carson, according to Mr. Trump's budget, was going to take, or is going to take, a 30% hit on the HUD budget, and Mr. Carson was 100% on board with it. So now you tell me how for this particular agency Mr. Carson is and how qualified he is.
Agree with everything an agency does before you run it?
No, he doesn't agree with anything that HUD is supposed to do.
Okay, well, why is that? I mean, is there something specific that you disagree with him on?
Yes,
in housing policy?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one, he said poverty is a choice. Two, he's trying to roll back the fair housing programs that were put underneath the previous administration. Just recently, he knocked down 40 buildings, public housing buildings in Illinois, and put 400 people into homelessness. He has talked about the policies of HUD specifically and said he doesn't agree with them. He's had no experience in this field. He is a brilliant surgeon. I'm sure he's a wonderful father, but being put where the word urban is seemed to me very clear why. And
all right, Tucker, so you asked for one reason, he gave you four.
But hold on, but you don't know that, and I guess I mean, it just seems so unfair. It's sort of the way Clarence Thomas...
Oh my God, a white person talking about fairness when it comes to a black person? I've died and gone to hell.
...was treated when he went to the Supreme Court. I mean, there are lots of people in the Supreme Court.
Clarence Thomas was
he was attacked. No, he was attacked because he was black.
Clarence
by African American leaders who said it's
Thomas.
No, Clarence Thomas was attacked because he was a goddamn misogynist, and he liked to violate women, particularly black women, which is funny since he was married to a white woman. But that's where Clarence Thomas was attacked, and that's. And if you go back, and there probably are YouTube videos on it, the Clarence Thomas hearings, you can clearly see he wasn't being attacked because he was black. He was being attacked because of his assault on Anita Hill. And Mr. Carlson, I guess, is either too dumb or too young to either have gone back and looked at history, but they love bringing up their quote-unquote token on the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, which gives them cover as far as not being racist or not being against black people.
Was an attorney.
Yeah, but hold on. There's nobody more hated than Clarence Thomas because he was seen as a traitor somehow.
What I want to say about the Maxine Waters
standard. That's what
the Maxine Waters question, which was the original question. For me, Where we are in this country, we have to be honest. And to me, the Trump administration, particularly much of the conservative agenda, we have to ask why people who believe neo-Nazism, why people who believe in supremacy support those agendas, support those ideologies, support those policies. And Ben Carson is a part of those who support it. And it is a problem. And
wait, so is Ben Carson a white supremacist too now?
No, I believe he and many others around Trump support the same things that supremacists and Nazis support. That is.
I love the way that Tucker Carlson tries to ask a dumb question. Is Ben Carson a white supremacist with his picture up there? No, Ben Carson is not a white supremacist. Ben Carson is a collaborator. Okay, just like you had Jews during the Nazi Germany period, you know, some Jews anyway, during the Nazi Germany period. They weren't Nazis, but they were collaborators that helped the Nazis. Ben Carson falls into that particular category.
Clear.
Is that Ben Carson's fault? I mean, maybe he sincerely believes what he believes. Why are you trying to tar him with white supremacy?
That's fine. Then we just have to acknowledge, as long as we're acknowledging that the Nazis and supremacists believe them as well because of their exclusive policies and who they're going to exclude.
Do you know what McCarthyism was? That was smearing people unfairly with the beliefs of those they had nothing in common with. You'd say,
this is not
I would say, wait, hold on, no, but Giovanni, did you know you're a vegetarian? So was Adolf Hitler. Are you a Nazi? I mean, that's
okay.
it's
no,
insane.
No. What I said, and I made.
See, and that's Carlson throwing out bullshit. We're talking about policies, and Ben Carson agrees with all the policies of Donald Trump. It's not that Ben Carson agrees with the dietary likes and dislikes of Donald Trump. That's basically just throwing bullshit out there. When we're talking about something serious, we're talking about policies. Ben Carson agrees with the policies. That's why people are running up against him. But Carlson tries to throw something flippant in there, just trying to throw Mr. Williams off. Doesn't work.
I have to say that the policies of the right oftentimes exclude people and keep them under oppression. And we've been saying that for quite some time.
Really?
That is why the Nazis and the supremacists support those views and support those policies. Lee Atwater in the 80s.
Right,
he made it
quite
clear.
Let me just ask you a question.
Sure.
How many people were shot in Chicago last week?
Lee Atwater.
Hold on. 63 people were shot in Chicago.
Sure.
I think almost all of them African American. That Republicans didn't do that.
You want to talk about gun violence?
Nobody. Those are actual people.
To talk about gun violence. Because gun violence kills more people than terrorism. But people who watch your show only focus on one thing. So if we want to talk about gun violence, we should. I would love to talk about gun violence.
But why is it? I just wonder why guns didn't do that. People picked up guns and shot other people.
I understand. What I said is gun violence.
See, and there is your standard right-wing rhetoric as far as deflecting and jumping off of a subject that they brought up when they were in a losing position. So he just went from Ben Carson to gun violence in Chicago. That's when you know that this guy is on the bad end of a losing argument.
Or anybody mentioned
exponentially more people
gun violence. It's people
killing other people using guns to perform violence.
That's fine, or knives or whatever. But they're harming each other. But you don't seem to care because you want to politicize everything.
Made it clear what they were saying. They were saying they could no longer use the N-word, so they have to talk about policies that hurt the black community. That was clear in the 80s, and we see it now.
Okay, I just wonder if anything that you're saying improves the lives of anyone.
Great.
Of anyone.
So now what we have to do is...
I'm sincere.
Sincere also. Like the reason I say it, let me just say it. Yeah. The reason I'm saying it is because we need to be honest about what we're doing, so then we can move forward.
You need to scare the crap out of your constituents so they don't ask hard questions about why you're not making their lives better.
When we're honest about what's actually happening, then we can move forward.
Right. You represent a poverty-stricken, violent part of New York.
No,
rather than, but when people when your constituencies
believe in exclusion, and what we have to do is knock that down.
You know what? I'm actually not for exclusion at all in any way.
Now notice that Tucker Carlson just started to attack this gentleman and his constituents, and being a typical New Yorker, Mr. Williams damn sure pushed back on him, and in the right way. So Mr. Carlson got a little frustrated here.
Well, I said
I'm just saying it's a lot easier, but that's...
But I do know the policies
accuse me of racism all you
the
want.
policies of talking about Mexicans, the policies of talking about
I got it, all right.
Islam.
Change the subject again.
Okay, no, Mr. Carlson changed the subject, and as you note, Mr. Carlson was the one that threw in the, you're accusing me of racism. Mr. Williams never accused him of being a racist. He accused him of being a mouthpiece for various ideologies in Fox News, but he never said that he was a racist. It was Mr. Carlson that threw in the race card, not Mr. Williams.
He would have criticized he was a racist,
No,
but I'm just saying it's pretty
absolutely not.
easy for politicians like you to say, don't ask questions about how your lives suck, just white supremacists are here.
And so I'm very excited that history is going to exonerate people who are talking like me and frown about people who are speaking like you.
Ooh, now I'm worried, Councilman.
You should be, because I got a feeling that your show is not long for the world. Anyway, that's the end of this particular clip. But you notice the tactics that the guys on the right like to use when they're on the bad side of a losing argument. They try to turn themselves into victims. It just doesn't work. But Tucker Carlson, between him and Jesse Waters, I don't know which one of these guys is worse on Fox. You make your own call on that one.